You've probably seen this dramatic illustration of what would happen if the sun were to disappear. But have you ever seen it? Well, now you have. But how would the sun actually disappear? Would it vanish without a trace? Or would it go out like a candle? And what would happen next? In reality, the sun won't disappear for billions of years. But for the sake of a fun movie and a thought experiment, let's imagine it does. If the sun suddenly vanished, the Earth wouldn't go dark right away. Since light takes about 8 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth, we'd still see sunlight for 8 more minutes. Then, total darkness. The temperature would quickly begin to drop. Within a week, the average surface temperature on Earth would fall below freezing. Within a year, it could reach minus 70 degrees Celsius, minus 94 degrees Fahrenheit. That's because the sun is not only a source of light, but also a source of heat. In fact, 99% of the energy we receive from the sun is in the form of heat. Now, some of you might be thinking, wait, doesn't the sun actually get its energy from nuclear fusion happening in its core? Yes, it does. But when the sun runs out of hydrogen fuel and collapses in on itself, it will become a white dwarf. It will be extremely dense and hot, but much, much smaller than the sun is now. So even if the sun were to magically disappear right before our very eyes, it wouldn't be going anywhere. Without the sun's gravity holding us in our planetary orbits, Earth would stop orbiting and instead move in a straight line through space at 25 kilometers or 16 miles per second. Eventually, Earth would come dangerously close to other stars and planets, scorching any life that might exist there. But let us just assume that Earth somehow manages to avoid getting obliterated by a passing asteroid or comet and remains intact. What happens next? Plants would die. Photosynthesis would stop, and the food chain would collapse. Most life on Earth wouldn't be able to survive without the sun's energy. Some life forms, however, such as those found deep in the oceans near hydrothermal vents, might be able to survive. These ecosystems are powered by chemicals rather than sunlight, so they might not be affected too much by the disappearance of the sun. For most of Earth, however, it would mean the end of life as we know it. But don't worry, it's not all bad news. You might be wondering, hey, if the sun were to disappear, wouldn't this be an awesome opportunity to see the stars? Unfortunately, no. Even though Earth would no longer be stuck in the glare of its own little spotlight, we wouldn't be able to see the stars. Why? Because these celestial beauties are so far away. Take our closest neighboring star, Proxima Centauri, which is part of the Alpha Centauri system. It's 4.24 light-years away. That means it takes light 4.5 years to get from Proxima Centauri to Earth. Even if the sun weren't in the way, we couldn't see the stars until its light had traveled all that distance. There are also clouds in the Earth's atmosphere that would block our view of the stars, and the only objects we'd be able to see at night would be the moon and planets Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So what would happen if the sun were to magically reappear after vanishing for a few days? What would happen if the sun were to suddenly get its old light back? This might sound like a silly question, but scientists actually don't know the answer. After all, it's never happened before. But we do know that life on Earth would look very different if the sun were to suddenly start acting weird. For example, if the sun were to suddenly expand and swallow Mercury, Venus, and even Earth, what would happen next? Again, it's hard to say, but scientists believe that if the sun were to expand to a size large enough to swallow Earth, temperatures on Earth would skyrocket, perhaps reaching up to 3,000 degrees Celsius. At that point, Earth's crust would disintegrate, releasing carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. Earth would become a giant ball of burning plasma. Would anything survive? Probably not. It's hard to predict exactly what would happen if the sun were to behave this way. But one thing is for sure, life on Earth as we know it would not survive. So let's just hope that whatever happens, it won't happen anytime soon. Now, check out what would happen if the sun exploded, or watch another video instead.